Avengers Endgame is a 2019 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics superhero team The Avengers, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the sequel to 2012's The Avengers, 2015's Avengers, Age of Ultron, and 2018's Avengers, Infinity War, and the 22nd film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. It was directed by Anthony and Joe Russo and written by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and features an ensemble cast including Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Don Cheadle, Paul Rudd, Brie Larson, Karen Gillan, Danai Gurira, Benedict Wong, Jon Favreau, Bradley Cooper, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Josh Brolin. In the film, the surviving members of the Avengers and their allies attempt to reverse the damage caused by Thanos in Infinity War. The film was announced in October 2014 as Avengers: Infinity War, Part 2, but Marvel later removed this title. The Russo brothers joined as directors in April 2015, with Marcus and McFeely signing on to write the script a month later. The film serves as conclusion to the story of the MCU up to that point, ending the story arcs for several main characters. Filming began in August 2017 at Pinewood Atlanta Studios in Fayette County, Georgia, shooting back-to-back with Infinity War, and ended in January 2018. Additional filming took place in the metro and downtown Atlanta areas, New York, Scotland, and England. The story revisits several moments from earlier films, bringing back actors and settings from throughout the franchise as well as music from previous films. The official title was revealed in December 2018. With an estimated budget of $356 million, it is one of the most expensive films ever made. Avengers Endgame was widely anticipated, and Disney backed the film with Marvel's largest marketing campaign. It premiered in Los Angeles on April 22, 2019, and was theatrically released in the United States on April 26. The film received praise for its direction, acting, musical score, action sequences, visual effects, and emotional weight, with critics lauding its culmination of the 22-film story. It grossed nearly $2.8 billion worldwide, surpassing Infinity War's entire theatrical run in just 11 days and breaking numerous box office records, including becoming the highest-grossing film of all time. Plot: 23 days after Thanos used the Infinity Gauntlet to disintegrate half of all life in the universe, Carol Danvers rescues Tony Stark and Nebula from deep space and returns them to Earth, where they reunite with the remaining Avengers: Bruce Banner, Steve Rogers, Thor, Natasha Romanoff, and James Rhodes, and Rocket. Locating Thanos on an otherwise uninhabited planet, they plan to retake and use the Infinity Stones to reverse the snap, but Thanos reveals he destroyed the stones to prevent their further use. Enraged, Thor decapitates Thanos. 5 years later, Scott Lang escapes from the quantum realm. At the Avengers compound, he explains to Romanoff and Rogers that he experienced only 5 hours while trapped, instead of years. Theorizing the quantum realm could allow time travel, the three ask Stark to help them retrieve the stones from the past to reverse Thanos' actions in the present. Stark refuses, thinking of his wife, Pepper Potts, and daughter, Morgan, but relents after thinking back to the death of Peter Parker. Stark and Banner, who has since merged his intelligence with the Hulk's strength, build time machine. Banner notes changing the past does not affect their present. Any changes instead create branched alternate realities. He and Rocket visit the Asgardian refugees' new home in Norway, New Asgard, to recruit Thor, now overweight and drinking heavily, despondent over his failure to stop Thanos. In Tokyo, Romanoff recruits Clint Barton, now violent vigilante following Thanos' disintegration of his family. Banner, Lang, Rogers, and Stark travel to New York City in 2012. Banner visits the Sanctum Sanctorum and convinces the Ancient One to give him the Time Stone. At Stark Tower, Rogers retrieves the Mind Stone, but Stark and Lang's attempt to steal the Space Stone fails, allowing 2012 Loki to escape with it. Rogers and Stark travel to SHIELD headquarters in 1970, where Stark obtains an earlier version of the Space Stone and encounters his father, Howard, while Rogers steals Pym particles from Hank Pym to use in returning to the present. Meanwhile, Rocket and Thor travel to Asgard in 2013, extracting the Reality Stone from Jane Foster and retrieving Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. Nebula and Rhodes travel to Morag in 2014 and steal the Power Stone before Peter Quill can. Rhodes returns to the present with the Power Stone, but Nebula becomes incapacitated when her cybernetic implants link with those of her past self. Through this connection, 2014 Thanos learns of his future success and the Avengers' attempts to undo it. He decides to rebuild the whole universe so no one will remember what he has done. 2014 Thanos captures present Nebula and sends 2014 Nebula to the present in her place. Barton and Romanoff travel to Vormir in 2014, where the Soul Stone's keeper, the Red Skull, reveals it can only be acquired by sacrificing someone they love. Romanoff sacrifices herself, allowing Barton to obtain the Soul Stone. Reuniting in the present, the Avengers place the stones into gauntlets Stark has created. Banner, the most resistant to the stone's gamma radiation, is chosen to wield the gauntlet and reverses the disintegrations. Meanwhile, 2014 Nebula uses the time machine to transport 2014 Thanos and his warship to the present, where he attacks the Avengers compound looking for the stones. Present Nebula convinces 2014 Gamora to betray Thanos but fails to convince 2014 Nebula and is forced to kill her. Confronted by Stark, Thor, and Mjolnir-wielding Rogers, Thanos outmatches them and summons his army from his warship. Stephen Strange arrives with other sorcerers, the restored Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, the Ravagers, and the armies of Wakanda and Asgard to fight Thanos and his army. Danvers arrives and destroys Thanos' warship, but Thanos overpowers her and seizes the gauntlet. Stark steals the stones and uses them to disintegrate Thanos and his army, at the cost of his own life. Following Stark's funeral, Thor appoints Valkyrie as the new ruler of New Asgard and joins the Guardians of the Galaxy. Rogers returns the Infinity Stones and Mjolnir to their original timelines and remains in the past to live with Peggy Carter. In the present, an elderly Rogers passes his shield and mantle on to Sam Wilson. Cast Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark Iron Man. According to directors Joe and Anthony Russo, Downey was one of the few actors to read the entire screenplay for the film. Screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely knew that Stark's death was inevitable both as move to selflessness and as an end to the chapter Stark started. They felt that his death was earned after granting him the perfect retirement life, adding, "That's the life he's been striving for." They got married, they had kid, it was great. It's good death. It doesn't feel like tragedy. It feels like heroic, finished life. Joe Russo explained that Stark always knew he was going to die because he could never reconcile that notion in himself of not protecting the universe, and added that Stark was the most defiant among the Avengers since Stark is the most formidable of all of them because of his heart. The Russos sought Downey's approval for Stark's arc, which they had developed since Captain America: Civil War, 2016. Chris Evans as Steve Rogers. Captain America. Marcus described Rogers as someone who is moving towards some sort of enlightened self-interest. Both he and McFeely knew he was going to get the dance he promised Peggy Carter in Captain America: The First Avenger, 2011, with McFeely saying, "Has postponed life in order to fulfill his duty. That's why didn't think we were ever going to kill him. Because that's not the arc. The arc is, finally get to put my shield down because I've earned that." Patrick Gorman provided on-set reference for an elderly Steve Rogers. Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner Hulk. In this film, Banner has managed to balance his two sides with gamma experimentation, enabling him to combine his intelligence with the Hulk's strength and physical stature, based on the Professor Hulk comic book identity. Compared to other heroes, who were demotivated by their loss against Thanos, Banner is the only character to remain hopeful, with Anthony Russo explaining, "Banner is the sole character who is actually forging into bright new future, trying to build something totally new and find something completely new. Banner is the one who is most heroic in sense that he maintains his will to keep trying." This concludes character arc that was established in Thor, Ragnarok and continued in Avengers, Infinity War. Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Thor now wields mystical axe known as Stormbreaker, after the destruction of his hammer, Mjolnir, in Thor, Ragnarok. In the film, Thor has become an overweight, drunken ruler of Asgard's refugees in Tonsberg, Norway. Referencing this drastic character change, Hemsworth said, "Just had an opinion. Wanted to do something different this time. Each film I've wanted to, in particular, the last couple, and they were on board," and added, "We shot for many hours and days and discussed how far could we push Thor, and what we could do different." Anthony Russo added, "Even though there's a lot of fun to be had in the movie with his physical condition, it's not gag. It's manifestation of where he is on character level, and we think it's one of the most relatable aspects of him. It's very common sort of response to depression and pain." Thor's story was his favorite arc, saying, "Part of Chris' magic as comedic actor is his dedication to the depth of the character on very earnest level. It's so devious and subversive when comedy is coming from place of complete commitment and emotional complexity." Hemsworth underwent around 3 hours of hair and makeup for the transformation, which also required him to wear a large silicone prosthetic suit. He called himself Lebowski Thor on set. Thor was initially supposed to revert to his old chiseled self in the middle of Endgame, but Hemsworth successfully argued in favor of retaining Thor's new physique. Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff Black Widow. At the beginning of the film, Romanoff continues to command several teams from around the galaxy in the Avengers headquarters, which Joe Russo explained was stemmed from her inability to move on from their failure to stop Thanos, saying, "She's doing everything she can to try and hold the community together. She's the watcher on the wall still." On the decision for Romanoff to sacrifice herself for Barton to acquire the Soul Stone to bring back everyone, Joe Russo stated that it was part of larger theme exploring the desire to sacrifice, compared to the desire to protect in Infinity War. He says, "When she gets to that Soul Stone scene, think she understands that the only way to bring the community back is for her to sacrifice herself." McFeely stated, "Her journey, in our minds, had come to an end if she could get the Avengers back. She comes from such an abusive, terrible, mind control background, so when she gets to Vormir and she has chance to get the family back, that's thing she would trade for." To prepare for the film, Johansson underwent high-intensity workout regimen, which included plyometrics, Olympic weightlifting and gymnastics, as well as time-restricted eating diet, all under the supervision of her longtime trainer, Eric Johnson, with whom she had worked since Iron Man 2010, the film which introduced her character. Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton Hawkeye. McFeely described Barton's dark turn as good example of people who had much stronger stories after the snap. The film's cold open, which features the disintegration of Barton's family, was initially supposed to be an Infinity War following Thanos' snap. However, it was moved to Endgame instead, with Marcus explaining that it was going to blunt the brutality of what Thanos did. Joe Russo felt it was very tragic scene to open the movie with. "It's one of the few scenes in the movie that actually makes me tear up when watch it, because think about my own family. And then you think about what would happen to you, as father." Yowd. become very self-destructive. Don Cheadle as James Rhodey Rhodes' War Machine. Cheadle described Roddy's newfound belonging as an Avenger as not so much straddling one foot in the military. Hess much more on the side of the Avengers than he was prior. This is reflected on Roddy's more instinctive and realist worldview in the midst of encountering the fantastic, with Cheadle explaining, Hess definitely got somewhat the "F is happening" attitude, more than maybe the rest of them do, given his background. But it's trial by fire, and Hess quickly adapted to what the threat is, rather than what he wishes it were. Paul Rudd as Scott Lang. Ant-Man. Lang is portrayed by twins Baslow and Lone Leckler as Baby, by Jackson A. Dunn at age 12, and by Lee Moore at age 89. This was Moore's final film before his death in August 2018. Marcus explained that adding Lang helped with implementing time travel into the film, saying, "We had access to him in the second movie, and the fact that he was bringing whole subset of technology that did have something to do with different concept of time was like birthday present." Brie Larson as Carol Danvers. Captain Marvel. Marcus stated that Danvers' powers are on